Hey, everybody, I'm Scott Wikle. You're listening to My Kind of Country. Thanks so much for joining us on a Monday night. I am beyond excited to have this gentleman on my show tonight. He is a member of the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. He had, oh my gosh, over 30 of his own hits between 1971 and 1982. But he has written country music gold for so many artists. Number one songs for Reba McEntire, George Jones, Razzie Bailey, George Strait, Charlie Pride, just so many fantastic artists, and we're going to talk about a lot of those songs and play them for you tonight. And it's a pleasure to have him on the show and talk about his fabulous career tonight. It's my honor to welcome the one and only Dickey Lee to My Kind of Country. Dickey, how are you tonight?
Hey, Scott. It's great to be here, and I'm really happy to talk to you because I love Michigan. I've played all over that state, and I hope I play all over it some more.
Man, we are looking forward to getting you back up here again. I've seen you a couple times as we talked before we got on the air, and just you put on such a fabulous show. And I have to tell you that you just sound amazing. Your voice has, the Lord has blessed you and kept your voice, and you sound just fabulous.
He really has, I guess. You know, people say I was coined with the phrase, he has the voice that never grew up.
That's right. That's a good way to put it.
No, it is really kind of funny. But I guess if you use it, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I've never really stopped. And actually, I sing all my songs in the same keys I recorded them in.
Is that right? Wow, that's amazing.
Well, I've really been blessed.
That's for sure. Are you still writing songs? Do you still get the inspiration?
Yeah, I'm still, I kind of quit for a little while because, the songs that have been recorded today pretty much are nothing like I write. So I thought, well, why write a song if you can't get it recorded? But I've been writing a little bit lately with a good friend of mine who lives up in Pennsylvania. A young kid, he's 27 years old, really talented. Conrad Fisher. He's written a number one bluegrass song, and I think he's going to do some great things.
So anyway, you're from Memphis originally, right?
Right. Yeah.
Now, were you involved? You were involved in Sun Records. I know that it's kind of where you got your start, right?
Yeah. In fact, I was just told. I don't know if it's true or not, but I was just told when Jerry Lee died, I'm the only surviving member of Sun Records.
Wow. Yeah, I gotta believe that. I don't think there's anybody else left around, so that's pretty amazing. Now, your very first recordings were on a label called Tampa.
Yeah, just my very first one, and then I went to Sun.
Okay.
I had a friend named Dewey Phillips. A friend. He was a disc jockey, a big disc jockey in Memphis. And one night, he would have a show. He had a show called Red Hot and Blue. I don't know if you ever heard him or not. I mean, he was an awesome disc jockey.
Yeah, I sure know the name.
But I went up to his studio one night, and when he was coming off the air, I asked him if he'd listen to a couple of songs, which he did. And he said, "Do you have a band?" I said, "No." He said, "If you put a band together, let me know, and let me hear them with a band." So, make a long story short, I did. Got back up there, and he actually recorded them in the studio and put them out on this little fly-by-night label called Tampa Records. And it was a number 2 record in Memphis. It didn't get to number 1 because Elvis is all shook up. Number 1. Our records came out at the same time, and I followed him up. I was one slot behind him all the way to number 2.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So tell me about Sun Records. I know is that where you first met Jack Clement?
Yeah, that is, and he's my mentor. He's the guy that really, really got me going in the business and kept me in the business, and I've been with him up until he died, a few years ago up in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
He was my engineer down there. In fact, he engineered most everything down there and did a lot of the Jerry Lee Lewis stuff. But he was a really talented guy. Ended up in the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Well deserved, and I think there needs to be an update, and I think you need to be in there too. I know a lot of people will agree with me.
I don't know about that. I'm in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, but I don't know about the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Well, it's well deserved, and that's for sure. You've got such a great body of work.
I appreciate your kind words.
your music style starting out was really more rockabilly. Was it really your intention to get into country music, or did that just kind of fall into place for
Well,
you?
now here's the deal. I loved country music. In fact, I was singing Webb Pierce songs when I was about 13 years old, and then I guess the rock and roll thing came along, and I was really influenced by Elvis, and I heard so much of him down there that I just loved it. I just started off doing rock and roll, but I can remember on all these shows I'd be on. I'd play my country songs, or sing country songs to some of the artists that I could capture backstage and all. I remember Brian Hyland, who I talked to Christmas. If you remember him, that little bitty itsy bitsy yellow polka dot bikini and some of those things.
Sure.
He was a big George Jones fan, and I'd sing songs to him, and he'd love it.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I wanted to talk about Elvis a little bit more. Did you work with Elvis at Sun Records at all, or did you get to know him?
No, he left just as I got there. He went to RCA.
Okay.
But I did get to know him, but I never worked with him.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, didn't you pitch "She Thinks I Still Care" to him first?
Yeah, it was funny. He had a guy that worked for him, and he heard the song right after I'd written it, and he said, "Well, I want to show that to Elvis." And I made a copy for him and took it, and never heard anything. And then Jack got it recorded by George Jones, and I was talking to Elvis. Gosh, probably maybe I don't know years after that, and he said, "Hey, I really love that song here. She Thinks I Still Care." I said, "Well, you're the first guy it was pitched to." And he said, "What are you talking about?" So I told him this story. It was funny. I won't tell you what he said over the air, but I think, Scott, that was probably a blessing in disguise, because I probably had close to 1,000 cuts on that song, and if Elvis had done it first, probably nobody else would have done it.
Yeah. Well, Jones himself recorded it pretty much on every label he was on. I know the original was on United Artists, then he recorded it on Musicor, and he recorded it on Epic, and had some live cuts of it. So he did that song quite a few times.
Well, you know what's so funny? Elvis actually, he had his album, The Jungle Room. I'm not sure that was the correct title of the album, but he had it in there 3 times. And he actually cut it twice. He had 2 different recordings of it. And then he had a deal in his album. He did a bunch of outtakes. They were just kind of screwing around, and he had that also in the outtakes. So I had the same song 3 times in an Elvis album.
There you go. I wanted to ask you, too, about She Thinks I Still Care. Tell me about the story of that. Was that a true story?
Yeah, it was about a girl that I was really crazy about when I was going to school down there. And, she kind of dumped me, and I wrote this song about her. And I haven't seen her in years, but we remained friends for a long, long time. She lives in Memphis. But she was kind of responsible for that song. But I got to thinking, I thought, man, I'll take a heartbreak for a song like that anytime.
What did you think when you first heard George Jones' version of it?
Oh, I loved it.
She Thinks I Still Care is a monster classic. It's one of my favorite songs, and as I said, I'm a big George Jones fan, and I'm thankful that he recorded it, because it's a country standard.
Well, I am too. So, of course, I'm a big George Jones fan.
Absolutely. Did you ever get to work with him?
No, I never worked with him, but I also got to know him really well. We tried to write a few things together, and we got to be pretty good buddies. But I actually never did any shows with him.
That brings up a question that I'd like to ask you on that note. I in the early days, I see a lot of records of George Jones where he's credited as a co-writer. Did he really do a lot of writing, or were a lot of those just kind of deals that were made to get the song recorded?
Well, I can't tell you the true answer, but I'm not aware that he was a big writer.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I always kind of wondered about that. Well, tell me a little bit about. I saw Linda yesterday and Lori. Those were kind of some really serious songs that you recorded in back in '63 and '65. And I know Ray Stevens produced. I think he produced Lori for you, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it was Laurie was it was a ghost story. And there's a good friend of mine who actually we came to Nashville together in 1970. Alan Reynolds, and we worked together in Memphis a lot. He was in my band when I put my band together when we did my first hit. So we've been together ever since. And we came up here, and he ended up recording all the Garth Brooks hits. But Alan and myself and another guy, his name was Milton Addington. He was a psychology professor at Memphis State University. And I can't even remember how we met up, but the three of us would write together about once or twice a week. And one night I was talking, and I said, I'm a big Stephen King fan. I've read all his books, and I'm a big horror freak fan, I guess. So I was just wondering out loud, wonder what it would be like to have a ghost story on record. And, we talked about it a few minutes and then just kind of let it drop. About a month later, Milton comes in and he's got this song, Laurie. He'd written it. And we, I thought, well, man, this is really cool. It's kind of weird. So we thought, well, let's see if we can record it and just see how it comes off. Maybe we can do something with it. But yeah, he was really a nice guy. In one of his psychology classes, he had a girl. Actually, I can't even think what her last name was, or what her name was right now. But he was talking to her about it after we talked about it, and she was kind of a big folklore fan, and she said, well, there've been some real old bluegrass songs written about things like that, and he told him a bunch of stuff, and actually he gave her half of the song just for giving him the information she gave him.
Oh wow!
But it was a big hit record for me.
That's for sure. That's neat.
We had talking about we not only had just a little trivia. Ray Stevens was on that record. Boyd Kramer was on that record, and Boots Randolph was on that record.
Oh wow! That's some pretty heavy hitters.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
That's like the $1 Million Band. Those guys all, when Hee Haw was on in the '70s, they had that $1 Million Band. A bunch of those guys were in that group. Remember that?
Oh man, yeah. And I don't know. Do you recall a guy named Norbert Putnam, a bass player from Muscle Shoals?
I sure do. Yeah.
Well, he was also on the record, and he told me later. He said, "Dickey," he said, that was my first hit I played on in Nashville.
Is that right? Wow. How did it come to be that you ended up on the Mercury Smash label?
Well, when we recorded Patches, another little story here, like Jack, after Sun Records, he left Sun and he came to Nashville. He was doing some stuff for RCA and some other people, and he met a guy from Beaumont, Texas, by the name of Bill Hall, who started the Big Bopper and Johnny Preston and worked some with Buddy Holly. And Bill talked to him about maybe them getting together and building a studio in Beaumont, Texas, which they did. And then Jack, we created a nice relationship. So even after I left Sun, he got a hold of Alan and me, and he wanted us to move down to Beaumont, and do some work down there with him. And we actually did, and that was where I recorded Patches. That was the first hit recorded out of this Beaumont studio.
Was Jerry Kennedy working at that time for Mercury?
Yeah, he was. What they did, we recorded the song, and they leased the song to Mercury and Jerry Kennedy. We recorded Jerry Kennedy. No, he didn't have anything to do with the record, but Jack and Bill, they leased the record to Mercury. It was with Jerry Kennedy and Charlie Bash. I don't know if you remember a guy named Charlie Bash. Mm-hmm. He was the president of Smash. But anyhow, and Shelby Singleton, he's the one that kind of picked it up.
Yeah.
So, and then I once that happened, I created a lifelong relationship with Jerry Kennedy, and we've had a friendship that's lasted through all these years.
So in these days, were you doing a lot of writing for yourself or for other artists?
Mostly for other artists. I didn't like any of this stuff I wrote for myself. But I had, we did. You were talking about I Saw Linda yesterday. We did. Alan Reynolds and I wrote that song for me, and that was my second record after Patches on Smash, and it was my first Nashville recording. Jerry Kennedy was the session leader on that session.
Okay, cool. When did you move to Nashville?
1970, I think, is right at the first of the year.
Okay. And that's about the time you sang with RCA then, right?
Yeah, that was. In fact, I signed with RCA in 70, later in the year, and recorded for them for 10 years.
Wow. You had some great songs right out of the gate. I know Never Ending Song of Love was a huge hit.
That was my first number one country hit.
Yeah.
That was a great era. The era we grew up in, I thought it was just magic.
Yeah, I love that era too. And you had so many great hits during that time. Of course, Ashes of Love and Rocky. That was the number one for you in '75, I think.
Yes, 75.
And one of my favorite songs, and I don't hear it played a lot, but I play it because I really like it, is called Angels, Roses, and Rain.
Yeah. That was the number one record in Cashbox, actually.
Was it? Okay.
Well, it's really funny. I'd had a bunch of hits, and I love that song. Bob Morrison, he's a songwriter in Nashville, and I knew him. And somebody in his office or somewhere played me the song, and I just love the song. He had two co-writers who were brothers, and I cannot remember their names. They were not from Nashville. But I just loved the song, and we recorded it and did it. And what's really funny, like I credited it as one of my number one songs, but I actually never sang it that much on personal appearances, and for the life of me, I cannot tell you why.
Well, I'm going to put in a request for it if you come up to Traverse City again. I'd like to hear that.
No, I'll have to learn it. I don't even remember it.
I'll give you a fair warning.
Yeah. Hey, this is something you can discuss this with Barry. See how he feels. The last time I was up there, this was just I guess just before the pandemic started. But I was talking to Barry about coming up there, and I've done a bunch of these songwriters in the round down in Nashville. Where they'll get a bunch of songwriters together, 3 or 4, and they'll sing for a couple of hours in some of these little clubs and things. It's just kind of a fun thing to do. And I got where I was really digging it. And I do all my rock and roll shows, or even all my Michigan shows. I always have a band. And I was talking to Barry one time, and I said, Barry, I got an idea. And I said, I don't know if you will like it or not, but I said, what would you think about? And he just booked me for 3 shows. We were talking about these shows he just booked me for, and they were about about 3 months off or something like that. And I said, what would you think if I came up there and just sang, just me by myself on a stool, just talking to the audiences? I said, what I do, like I got about 20 songs that were number one songs that I either wrote for somebody else or recorded, and just, I sit there on a stool, I just play my guitar, play these songs, and I talk to the audience about the songs. I tell stories about all of them, why I wrote them, and all these kind of things. And I said, first of all, I said, that means you won't have to pay for a band, hotel rooms, food. You won't have to bring in a big sound system. I said, I know it'll save you a lot of money, but it's just, if you wanted to give it a shot. So we talked about it. He said, well, okay, let's try it. And I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? Because I'd never played for, an audience of hundreds of people like that. I've played for, these little clubs down in Nashville. I thought, my gosh, what have I done? So from the minute I hung up with him, he okayed it, said, let's give it a try. Boy, I started, man, just practicing. I would probably do my show almost 5 or 6 days a week for over a couple of months. I mean, almost every day. And I worked my tail off because I kind of scared myself. I thought, man, can I do this? But anyway, something I found out, if you practice, you get better. That was always a theory with me, but I finally figured it out. Because when you're playing with a band, you're playing okay, but I mean you got a lot of support there, and you got to do a lot of things with your guitar that you really didn't do when you're playing by yourself. But anyway, we did it, and man, it worked out beautifully. I mean, the audiences loved it, and they loved the stories and all that stuff, and so like I've kind of morphed into that. When I still play with bands sometimes, but I love to do it by myself because you kind of create your own rhythm, and you're not when you're playing with a band, you're a little bit captive, because they get going, and you kind of got to go along with them.
Yeah,
different things, but when you're in control and you're doing it all by yourself, you can just do it your way and really enjoy it. And I had no idea I would enjoy it as much as I did. Because way back when I first started doing these things, I only had 3 or 4 songs, and I'd play them for these audiences. But I was, a lot of times I was scared to death. But I got to the point where, man, this is fun, and it just made my my playing got better. I think my singing got better, and it's just so much more intimate with an audience when you do it that way.
Oh, sure.
But anyway, I can still do it anyway. But I just love to do that, and I've been doing that a lot the last couple of years. But I just love the intimacy of this, and I found out people love to hear the stories about these songs. They identify with the song even more than they did in the first place.
Well, Dickey, that's the difference between real country music and the stuff that's going on today. It's music that people can relate to, and
it'd be pretty. Some of the stuff they're doing today, it'd be pretty hard to do it with one person sitting on it.
Yeah, no kidding. But people like you that write songs, people that can identify with, and I'm sure you've probably had interpretations of your songs that you kind of went, wow, there was maybe something in there that you hadn't heard before.
Sure, yeah. I'll tell you, Scott, I guess of all the hits that I've written for other people, I think the actual recording that I have enjoyed the most is Doug Stone's "In a Different Light." I just love the arrangement and the how they put that thing together. I just loved it.
Yeah, he's got such a vulnerable sound to his voice, and that was a perfect sound
really
for
does.
him. Yeah, he's a great guy. He's been on my show a couple times too. Well, I'm going to give my listeners just a little rundown of some of these songs that you're talking about here. They were all number ones. Of course, we talked about "She Thinks I Still Care," "Let's Fall to Pieces Together" with George Strait. The very first time I heard that song, from the very first line, I was hooked because it said, "Pardon me, you left your tears on the jukebox, and I'm afraid they got mixed up with mine." I mean, that's one of the best lines I think I've ever heard in a song.
Well, this is funny. When I wrote that with Tommy Rocco and Johnny Russell.
Oh, wow.
We were trying to come up with just a really good country song, and Russell's the one that started talking about it. He said, let's write something really country, but really good. And I swear, Scott, I said, "Pardon me, you left your tears on the jukebox." I mean, from the within seconds of him saying that, I said that. I don't know where it came from, but I snatched it up somewhere. It came out of the air.
Oh, man.
The Lord maybe sent it to me, but that was just kind of magic, I had the same situation. This has only happened twice in my life, but I had the same situation with "Keeper of the Stars," and Johnny Mayo. Danny Mayo and a girl by the name of Karen Sadie, three of us wrote that song, but Daddy came over to my house one night and said, man, I got a great title and I don't know what to do with it. And I said, what is it? He said, The Keeper of the Stars. And I said, it was no accident, me finding you. And I swear, that's happened twice, and that's it.
Wow, that's amazing.
But both songs had great success. So.
And The Door is Always Open, that, of course, was the #1 for Dave and Sugar. And I came to that song a little bit backward. The first time I heard it, Ernest Tubb had actually recorded it on an album.
Yeah, that was my only Ernest Tubb hit that I'm aware, cut that I'm aware of. I loved Ernest Tubb, though.
Oh, he's fabulous. He'd recorded that several years before Dave and Sugar did it, and so when Dave and Sugar did it, I went, I remember that song,
Oh, man. Yeah, I think that may have been, that was either first or second #1 record. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was that and Queen of the Silver Dollar was pretty close in time there, I think.
Yeah, Queen of the Silver Dollar that may have been their first record.
Yeah, it might have been, yeah. Yeah, another song that hit me like Let's Fall to Pieces Together did was Charlie Pride's I'll Be Leaving Alone, and that was another one of those solid, just hardcore country songs that came right up through the middle at a time where the music was kind of going more toward the mainstream, but Charlie came right up there and had a #1 with that.
Yeah, well, that song's got a great story because I've known Charlie. I knew Charlie well because I would do his. He would have a tournament, a celebrity golf tournament every year in Albuquerque, and they invited me to it, and I would go year after year, and we got to be really great friends with his wife, Rosine, and but when I wrote that song and sent it to him, and I talked to Rosine, she said, Dickey, she said, we really like this. She was kind of the boss in that family. She said, and she called Charlie Pride. She said, I'll let Pride do this on one condition. And I said, what? Well, in the song there was the name of a city, and the song I had it originally as Tulsa. Well, they're from Dallas, and he said, you got to change Tulsa to Dallas. And I said, okay, Rosine, let me think about it. Okay, Rosine, I've thought about it. I'll change it. So he recorded it, and they put it out, and it was the #1.
I love it. It's another one of those, like I said, right from the get-go. I'll tell you, I got to tell you a quick Charlie Pride story. I'll cut this part out of the interview, but I got to interview him a couple times, and I was so thankful. But the first time I interviewed him, I brought up a song that he had done a duet with George Jones, and it was called I'll Bring the Bottle. And I started talking about it, and he got kind of quiet. And I thought, uh-oh, baby, I should have asked about this. And he said, where did you hear that? And I said, I had it on a disc. I think it was from CDX that sent me for, when they send the new songs through the DJ service. And he said, I didn't know that ever was done. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I went in and recorded my vocals, and he said, I never knew that George Jones came in and put his vocals on it, let alone it being put out. And I said, yeah, I've got it right here. And he got really excited. And he said, can you please send it to me? I've never heard it. I didn't even know that they finished it. And so, long story short, I sent it down to his manager, and Charlie called me a couple days later, and he said, I want to thank you. He said, no one ever told me that this song got finished. He said, I'm so thankful that I got to have this song with George Jones. I thought that was the coolest thing.
Oh, man, that is good. Don't take that out of the interview. People would love to hear that. Great. And I'll give you another story about George. I mean, it was something else. The same type of situation. George, they had just recorded. They recorded a James Taylor song, Bartender Blues.
Yeah.
I think the name of it was.
Yep.
But after they recorded, he left and went on tour. And while he was gone, Billy Sherrill, his producer, got this idea. He got a hold of James Taylor in New York and said, look, he said, I'm so-and-so, I produced George Jones. And he said, we just recorded your song. And he said, would it be any chance, could we pay you come down and put your voice on the song while he's out of town. And James Taylor said, are you kidding me? He said, I love George Jones, and you don't have to pay me anything. I'll fly down at my own expense. I'd be honored to have my voice on a George Jones record. So they did it. You know, make a long story short, they did it. James comes down and puts his voice on the song. They leave, and later, you know, George comes back off tour, and Billy Sherrill says, hey, I want you to hear something. So he said, okay. So he plays the song for him with James Taylor's voice on it. He's already mixed it and everything. They're done with it. And George said, who is that? and Billy Sherrill says, man, that's James Taylor. And George says, who in the hell is James Taylor? That's pretty funny.
I love it. Oh, that's a great song too, man.
Yeah, George has no idea who James Taylor was.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. He was a country boy, that's for sure.
Boy, you're not kidding.
There's another song that George recorded of yours, and I think you wrote it with Freddie Weller, and it's called Wrong's What I Do Best.
Yeah, Freddie and I wrote that one.
Man, I love that song too. I don't think I was
well,
ever.
We wrote that for him, because we thought, you know, let's write a song about George's life.
Yeah.
And he liked it and did it.
John Schneider was another one that had a number one song, one of your songs. I've been around enough to know, and a lot of people don't know that John Schneider was really successful as a country music artist back in the 80s, along, you know, during the time that the Dukes of Hazzard was going on.
Oh, man. Well, you know, he started out as a pop artist. He was on RCA. Had some pop. One song, it was a song that Elvis did later, like It's Now or Never. And he had some success with that. But that's another story. That's what's so cool about doing these things the way I'm doing them today. I can tell these song stories all day long. But he came in, he decided that he wanted to record country, really country. And he came into our studio one day, into our offices. They played songs for him, and you know, he didn't find anything. He said, play me something that you would never connect with me. Because everything they were playing to him had kind of a little poppy feel to it, you know, and so they played this song. There was a French Cajun singer who had it out, and his name will come to me in a minute, but thought it was Bob McDillon. I wrote this song, and he cut it, and boy, he killed it. We thought it was a great record. He did some Cajun French in it, and it was on Mercury, and actually it did absolutely zero. It didn't do anything. So, you know, we pitched it around some, and, you know, we didn't get any interest in it. This is maybe 5 or 6 years after this. That song lay around, and then John, he heard it. They played it for him. He said, man, I love that. He recorded it, had a smash with it, and on Warner Brothers. And when they put it out, you know, back in those days, sometimes country disc jockeys would get a little PO'd about, they'd say, you know, these pop singers, they think if their pop careers washed up, well, we'll just go country, you know.
Yeah.
And and you know, it's not quite as easy as they think it is. And but anyway, this guy, he's kind of like, he reminded me of myself as far as country. Boy, he was a great country singer, but when I say reminded me of myself, we both kind of came from the pop era to the country era, but we both did it out of a true love for country music. And when Warner Brothers released this song on him, they were afraid that when this country disc jockey saw his name, they wouldn't play it. So all the promo copies, instead of the artist's name on the record, they had a question mark, and that even created a little more mystery about the song. So they started playing it, and boy, the song just took off. I think it was in the charts for about 58 weeks.
Wow. Tell me a little bit about Reba McEntire. I know she had a number one with You're the First Time I Thought About Leaving, and she recorded He Broke Your Memory last night. And this was back when she was doing really good country music before she got kind of into the crossover stuff.
Yeah, well, Jerry Kennedy produced that record, You're the First Time I Thought About Leaving. And she had just gotten started. And, you know, she'd been on Mercury for a couple of years before things really started happening for her, but they just stuck with her. And I remember meeting her way back there and thinking, boy, she can really sing. Something's going to happen for her someday. And I remember that Jerry said, why don't you try to write something for Reba? So I remember a friend of mine, he just passed away this last year, Kerry Chater. He used to play in the Union Gap, but he's a really good songwriter. And we wrote this song. In fact, it's probably one of the quickest songs we wrote it in about 2 hours in my office. And I was going to send it to Jerry, and I sent him 2 songs. I sent him another song along with that one, but the other one I sent was the one I thought he's going to love this song. He's going to record it. So, we sent it over, and like about a week or so later, Jerry calls me and says, "Hey, man, we're going to do your song. We really like it, and Reba really likes it." And I said, "Great." And I mentioned the title. He said, "No, that's not it. We're going to do You're the First Time I Thought About Leaving." I thought, oh. So shows you how smart I am. He Broke Your Memory last night. I love that song. That's the song that another writer friend of mine, Bucky Jones, and I wrote. And it wasn't as successful as the other song, but it was a song that I really loved.
It's a beautiful song. Another song that, I don't think a lot of people probably have heard it, but Heather Miles, I think, is a fabulous singer, and she never really got the recognition she deserved. But Gone Too Long, you wrote the song with her, I think, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, we wrote that song. I loved Heather Miles. She was a heck of an artist. Boy, she worked her tail off. She traveled all over the place, and I thought she never got her due respect. She never was as big as I thought she was going to be, and I have no reason. I have no idea why.
We touched on this song a little bit earlier, but I wanted to talk more about it. Razzie Bailey had a huge hit with it, and you did too. 9,999,999 tears ago. Boy, that's a mouthful.
Yeah. He recorded it before I did. I was not aware of the record, and one of the guy at RCA, Juan Contreras, he somehow he heard the song. He said, "Man, there's a song you ought to cut." Razzie's record. It was a territorial hit. It didn't get really great exposure, and probably I don't know what label he was on at the time, but that probably didn't help him any. But we recorded the song, and I love the song. And it was it was kind of some of that early country rock, really.
That is a great song. Very unique title too.
Yeah, fun song to sing.
Oh yeah,
wake you up
sure.
in the mornings. I know that.
I'll bet. Jim Glazier, another one too that I love. Lights of Albuquerque. That's a beautiful song.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite songs that I've ever written.
Is it?
Bucky Jones, the guy I told you that wrote when we wrote He Broke Your Memory last night. He and Bob McDill and I wrote that song, and I had the idea came from when I was doing these golf tournaments in Albuquerque with Charlie Pride. I love that song, and I was just talking to him. I said, I want to write a song about Albuquerque, because I remember one night, one evening, twilight time, I was in Albuquerque. It's right, I-40 runs right through it, and I'd been out. We'd driven out of town out west from Albuquerque, and we're coming back, and just coming into Albuquerque, you kind of come over this big hill, and as you come over this hill, you look down, and Albuquerque's just lights up in front of you. I mean, it almost shocks you. It's like I remember it sounds like a diamond in the desert, man. It's just blasting out. It's just beautiful. And that's when I thought I got to write a song about this city.
It's a beautiful song, and Jim Glazier's got just a phenomenal voice. That that Marty Robbins style, and just floats.
He nailed it.
This might be a difficult question, and I never ask songwriters to tell me what their favorite songs are and things like that. But is there a song that either you recorded or someone else recorded that you wrote over the years that just really always stood out to you, whether it was a hit or not?
Probably. Well, my sentimental favorite is "She Thinks I Still Care," because I've had so many recordings of it. But I have one I wrote about my daughter. In fact, I wrote this song in Albuquerque when she was about 6 years old, and you'll just have to check it out. It's called Dana. That's her name, Danna. And it's just about her growing up, the father-daughter relationship. And it was never, it was a B-side on something and then an album, but it was never a single anyway, really. But it's just a song that just really meant a whole lot was 6 years old when I wrote it. She's 54 today.
Oh, wow.
And I have, by her, I have 2 grandchildren, 25 and 22.
Oh, that's great. I want to thank you so very much for taking time to be on My Kind of Country, Dickey. Thank you.
Scott, it was my pleasure, and I just want to say hey out there to all my friends in Michigan, and I hope I get to see a bunch of them again.
Well, we're sure looking forward to it. Folks, we're going to play a bunch more of these great songs from the pen of Dickey Lee as we continue with My Kind of Country.